PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we're going to be doing something a bit different than what we normally do here on the show, as we're going to be establishing a connection between Sweden, yes, Sweden, and your Vegas Golden Knights. So after doing a lot of research and really doing a lot of breaking down evidence and going through draft classes and seeing the signings and trades and all the stuff the Vegas Golden Knights have done the past 7 seasons, there is a direct link between the country of Sweden and their hockey players and our Vegas Golden Knights. One includes a player who has become a franchise guy for your Vegas Golden Knights, someone who has become a mainstay, a misfit of sorts for your Vegas Golden Knights. There was one that was very controversial when he got here and had a very controversial exit, but a player that was a good, vital part of your Vegas Golden Knights for a couple of seasons. Then you had 2 players who are young, up and coming. You haven't heard of them yet, but you are going to hear about them on this show here on Vegas Hockey Hub. Now, go to PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, and check out all of the fantastic content we have on the network. We have about a dozen shows on here, including Vegas Hockey Hub. So go to PRConnectionsRadio.com and check out all the amazing content. Go to the YouTube channel for PR Connections and subscribe and like this video as it helps support the network. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are at Vegas Hockey Hub. And if you want to follow your host, I am on social media as well, right down there at Ian J. Rachiele. So this is going to be a really fun episode as someone who's been spending actually a couple of good amount of time doing research on this and really breaking down this video. This is going to actually tell you a lot more in detail about how Sweden and the Vegas Golden Knights have a deeper connection and have a bigger connection than you would expect. So a really fun episode. I've, like I said, been putting a lot of research into it, so I'm really happy to tell you about it. Now, player number 1, and the first player that has a direct connection, a Swede, with your Vegas Golden Knights. He is an active member. He is a player on the Vegas Golden Knights today, and he has been a day 1 player for your Vegas Golden Knights from start to finish. And of course, I'm talking about the misfit at center, a former Columbus Blue Jacket turned Vegas Golden Knight, and that is number 71, Wild Bill William Karlsson. I mean, William Karlsson, what can I say about this guy that you don't already know about him? This is a guy who, ever since being acquired from the Vegas Golden Knights during the 2017 NHL expansion draft, he has been a very good player, a defining player, a franchise player, someone who your Vegas Golden Knights fan base has rallied around. You see his jerseys at T-Mobile Arena. You see people talking about him favorably, regardless if it's at the Fortress, at City National Arena, if you're at a restaurant, sipping your coffee, talking to someone about hockey. William Karlsson does get brought up from time to time, and overall has been a really good player for your Vegas Golden Knights. But what some people forget about William Karlsson is that he is from Sweden. In fact, he is a Swede. And not only is he one, but he actually played 2 seasons in the Swedish Hockey League for the HV71. And William Karlsson actually had such an impact in those 2 seasons that it caught the attention of the NHL. This is a guy who, he made his debut. He's playing for the senior team. He's playing out there in the Swedish Hockey League. And during those 2 seasons that he was in the Swedish Hockey League, 2012, 2013, 2013, 2014, he put up a stellar resume. In the first season he had 50 games, 4 goals, and 28 points in his first season playing for Swedish Hockey League. And then in the playoffs, in just 5 games, he had 2 points. Now, considering that he is only 19 years old, playing at the most elite level of the Swedish Hockey League, that is very respectable. And considering that he was playing alongside future NHLers like Carl Soderberg, he was playing alongside guys like Calle Jornkrok. There was so many good players that were in this league that was alongside him at this time. So his first season playing in Sweden, he has to play in 50 games, and he does rack up a few goals for his organization. Now, they did lose in the quarterfinals in the 2013 Swedish Hockey League playoffs that year, but what it showed is that William Karlsson had potential. And oh yes, William Karlsson had potential. And he would actually back that up with his second and final season playing for the HV71 in the Swedish Hockey League. As in 2013-2014, he would have 15 goals, 37 points in 55 regular season games. A much bigger improvement from his debut season at that point. You also have to remember with William Karlsson, this is him at 20 years old preparing to go to North America the next season. But what about the playoffs, right? The 2014 Swedish Hockey League playoffs, how would a William Karlsson do? How would his team perform at that level? Well, his team would go into the first round. They would lose in the quarterfinals, but it was definitely not because of William Karlsson. In 8 games in the playoffs that year, he had 3 goals and 7 points with the Swedish Hockey League. So overall, that's a very good situation there. The fact that you have a guy like William Karlsson who averaged a little under a point per game in the Swedish Hockey League playoffs that year. So he would finish his final season in the Swedish Hockey League with 44 points in 63 games. So overall, William Karlsson had a really good situation there, and he would finish out his Swedish Hockey League career with some notable numbers. As, like I mentioned, he had 30 points in his first season in the Swedish Hockey League. He would have 44 in this one. So 74 points as a member of the HV71 in the Swedish Hockey League. And then he would move over to the States. He'd be part of the Columbus Blue Jackets. He'd be part of the Anaheim Ducks for a while. And then he would make it over to Vegas. And I don't think this is a huge understatement, but when I tell you that William Karlsson was such an impact player from the get-go that in season 1, he set the franchise records in goals. He set the franchise record in points. In fact, it took a near 7 seasons for William Karlsson's record to even get anywhere near broken in that situation. That's how great his year 1 was with your Vegas Golden Knights. Keep in mind that that season, him getting 43 goals and 78 points, it was a milestone in itself, considering what he did in Columbus the year prior. That year in Columbus, he only had 25 points. That's it, 25 points. In fact, if you really want to go there, he only had 45 points if you combine his 2 seasons that he did in Columbus prior to getting to Vegas. So you go from 45 points in 2 seasons to 43 goals. Now, was it a bit suspicious? I will say yes. But was it the fact that this guy was given an opportunity for the first time in his career? Absolutely. Is it the fact that William Karlsson had a home and he was established as a top 6 forward? Abso-freaking-lutely. So, with William Karlsson, he has that great year 1. He comes back for year 2, 24 goals, 56 points that year. I mean, solid. That's a solid campaign. But he had longevity as well, because he had not missed a single game that year with your Vegas Golden Knights. He had played all 164 games of 164 games at that point in time. Now, the fellow 2 seasons after those first 2 years, he had a bit of a sit-back situation. 19 and 20, he only had 15 goals and 46 points. And then in 2020, 2021, a shortened year, he only had 14 goals and less than 40 points that season. And there was a lot of people speculating about William Karlsson. There was speculation, would William Karlsson be on his way out? What was his contributing factor? Well, the contributing factor to William Karlsson in 2019, 2020, and 2020, 2021 was his playoff numbers. Because those 2 seasons in the playoffs, he had 10 points in 20 games in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. That's half a point per game. And then in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs, he had 16 points in 19 games. So where William Karlsson showed his performance was in his playoff numbers. In fact, in his first 4 seasons playing for the Vegas Golden Knights, in the playoffs, he would have 46 points. Just stop and think about that for a minute. He would have 46 points in his first 4 playoff series with the Vegas Golden Knights. He was showing that in the playoffs, he could be a reliable and a constant guy that if you give him the puck, he would score for Vegas. And then the last 2 seasons before 2023, 2024, William Karlsson kind of just plateaued. He was kind of even for your Vegas Golden Knights. He only had 12 goals in 2021, 2022, and then he had only 14 goals in 2022, 2023. That was the year they went to the playoffs, by the way, and here was an ironic twist. I just said that he only had 14 goals in 2022, 2023, right? Yeah, I want someone to think about this for a minute. In his playoffs in 2023, the Stanley Cup playoffs where they won the Stanley Cup Finals, won a Stanley Cup championship, guess how many goals William Karlsson had? No, not points. Guess how many goals William Karlsson had after only having 14 in the regular season? Well, if you guessed that William Karlsson would have double-digit goals in the playoffs that year, you would be correct. As William Karlsson had 11 goals and 17 points in 22 playoff games that year. William Karlsson, alongside Adin Hill, alongside Jonathan Marchessault, alongside Mark Stone, alongside, I'm naming half the roster here, but you get the point. William Karlsson's 17-point performance was a big factor as to why your Vegas Golden Knights won a Stanley Cup championship. And William Karlsson, this season right here, right now, okay, just focusing on what he is doing this year, as of this date in time. I know there's some time left in the regular season, I get it, but William Karlsson this season, here is the stats for William Karlsson, okay? Granted, this is not complete yet, but this will set the tone. William Karlsson this season, at this moment in time, he has 22 goals on the year. William Karlsson, 22 goals on the year. Fantastic job there. It's also the same William Karlsson that at this point in time, okay, at this point in time, this is a guy who right now has 43 points on the year. So overall, William Karlsson's done an amazing job. I like what we have seen from the guy. And like I said, once again, 22 goals this year. Keep in mind what I said previously. He had 14 the previous year. It's also the same William Karlsson who did not break the 20-goal mark since his 2018-2019 season. So to say that William Karlsson has had a rebound season and he's had a comeback year would be an understatement. So overall, William Karlsson has done a fantastic job. And the fact that he has had 22 goals and 21 assists, that means that he can do both sides. He can shoot the puck and he can pass the puck around. And he's the main player here. When it comes to the connection between Sweden and the Vegas Golden Knights, William Karlsson is the main player here. And there's a good reason for it. He's a misfit. He's a day one guy. And like I said before, he is doing an incredible job this season. One of the highest points getters and on your Vegas Golden Knights this season. So, yeah, congratulations to William Karlsson. He has kind of shaped the mold and has been a big reason why there's a connection between Sweden and your Vegas Golden Knights. Now, this second guy, I know some people don't like him. I know there's some people who had a problem when he got here, but he is a Swede, and there's a connection here, so we have to talk about him. The second player that came from Sweden that made an impact with your Vegas Golden Knights is goaltender Robin Lehner. Robin Lehner, a.k.a. Panda, he came to the Vegas Golden Knights during the trade deadline from the Chicago Blackhawks. And Robin Lehner did make an impact, and there's actually one thing that a lot of people forget about Robin Lehner, and that was the fact that he bailed out Marc-Andre Fleury when he was at his lowest. There's a lot of people who seem to forget that when Robin Lehner first joined the Vegas Golden Knights, when he first got here in 2020, he had arguably one of the best performances of his entire career. This is the same Robin Lehner that for the remainder of the 2020 season, he had a 1.67 goals against average. He had a 94% save percentage. And some people are also going to forget that in 16 playoff games that year, Robin Lehner was in net for majority of that Stanley Cup final run. When it came to Robin Lehner in the Stanley Cup playoffs in 2020, during the bubble, his stats were really good for the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the same Robin Lehner that had 4 shutouts in the playoffs. It's also the same Robin Lehner that had a goals against average of 1.9 in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. So yes, I know what happens later. Okay, we know it, you know it, I know it, everyone knows it. But he did make an impact. Because I will say on record right here, right now, that if you don't acquire Robin Lehner in the 2020 trade deadline, you may not make these Western Conference Finals in 2020. Because Marc-Andre Fleury, despite, take off the rose-tinted glasses, take them off, and listen to me. The 2020 season was one of the worst seasons that Marc-Andre Fleury had. His age was catching up to him. He was not going to be an everyday starter anymore. We all knew it. So when Robin Lehner came in at the trade deadline, he was here because they needed a goaltender to help pretty much bail out Marc-Andre Fleury. So the connection here from Sweden to the Vegas Golden Knights is that Swede Robin Lehner helped the Vegas Golden Knights in the 2020 Stanley Cup playoffs. Not only did he help them make it to the playoffs in general, but when they took on Chicago in the first round, he took care of business. When they took on Vancouver in the second round, he took care of business. And then against Dallas, they came up just a bit short. But if he wasn't there, and it was just Marc-Andre Fleury, I am very confident in my statement that based off of how he performed, Marc-Andre Fleury would have not gotten Vegas to the Western Conference Finals that year. Because he was struggling bad in the regular season that year. Now, the following years for Robin Lehner, in 2020, 2021, he was the backup to Marc-Andre Fleury. He only played 19 games that season, but he did have to come in during the playoffs and actually started 3 playoff games in the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs that year for your Vegas Golden Knights. This is the 2021 Stanley Cup playoffs where the Western Conference Finals was the Montreal Canadiens versus the Vegas Golden Knights. And for anybody who wasn't around back then, no, that wasn't a typo. Montreal took on Vegas in the conference final. What a weird time the 2020 2021 season was. Wow. Now, where it fell apart for Robin Lehner was in 2021, 2022, he played in 44 games that year for Vegas. And he actually did relatively well. 23 wins, 17 losses, and 2 overtime losses. But his goals against average went up to 2.8. And unfortunately, there was a lot of people who did not like the fact that when it came to Robin Lehner, he unfortunately had a situation where he kept on getting injured. At first, he had a lower body injury. And then when he came back, he had an upper body injury. And then after having a little bit of time off, he would come back and then he would get hurt, getting hurt and having a knee surgery. So overall, when it came to Robin Lehner, the end of his tenure in Vegas was injury-based. It wasn't necessarily due to anything off the ice that caused him to be out. What caused him to be out was his problems with his lower body. His knees could not hold up anymore. He had to have knee surgery, and then he ended up having shoulder surgery that missed him an entire season. And then the following season, 2023, 2024, he had to have hip surgery, and he missed the entire season. So unfortunately, the Vegas Golden Knights are put in a situation where he is out indefinitely. And it's tragic. As somebody who has seen Robin Lehner, and when he won the Masterson Trophy with the New York Islanders, and he had his acceptance speech, and he talked about him overcoming his demons and overcoming his battles off the ice, man, go watch that interview, by the way. If anyone hasn't seen it, go to another tab, go to youtube.com, and watch his acceptance speech. Because it was emotional. Because the fact that he embraced the fact that he's had issues off the ice, that was what a man does. I respected the heck out of him for it. But I feel bad for Robin Lehner. Like, deep down, I feel bad for Robin Lehner. Because this isn't his fault that his body has betrayed him. It was not his fault that he had a knee surgery that kept him out for the remainder of the 2021-2022 season. It was not his fault that he had to have shoulder surgery, and that's why he missed a certain amount of playoff time. And it was not his fault that he had hip surgery, and that cost him an entire season with the Vegas Golden Knights. So personally, I feel bad for the guy. Because when your body betrays you and you're a hockey player, that's not mental, that's not emotional, that's pure physical. So I've always felt bad for Robin Lehner, and he is the second player of the Swedish connection between Vegas and the country of Sweden. Now, the next two players on this list are both goaltenders. They were both drafted around the same time, but the Vegas Golden Knights having an obsession with picking up Swedish goaltenders. It's not just a Robin Lehner thing. It's with these two as well. So AHL level goaltender Jesper Beckman. Now, when it comes to Jesper, he has been drafted by the Vegas Golden Knights a while ago. But what I find interesting about him is that when it comes to Jesper Beckman, he has actually been splitting time between Henderson and the Savannah Ghost Pirates, ECHL, AHL, with your Vegas Golden Knights organization. He is a prospect in Vegas right now, and more importantly, for him only being 22 years of age, he is progressing for Vegas. This is his second season playing for the Golden Knights organization here in North America. Both seasons, by the way, that he has mostly been in the AHL with the Henderson Silver Knights. So for Jesper Beckman, he is someone who has played about 19 games for Henderson overall. I know he played about a dozen in the ECHL, but I'm going to ignore that. And Jesper Beckman, he is having growing pains. He's having to learn the system in North America. But I truly believe that when he does eventually figure out that situation and he eventually grows into the North American style of goaltending, he will get better and better and better as a goaltender in the AHL. So he's the other one, okay? AHL goaltender Jesper Beckman. He is on there. He is a Swede who is in the minor league system for your Vegas Golden Knights. But let's not forget that a year after drafting Jesper Beckman from Sweden, they would draft another Swede late in the draft to be a goaltending prospect for your Vegas Golden Knights. As in the 2021 NHL draft, they would draft goaltender Carl Lindbom, who is a goaltender from Sweden. He is only 21 years old right now, and he has not made the jump over to North America yet. So the reason why a lot of Golden Knights fans or a lot of people who may not be familiar with his name is because he is not in North America yet. He is only in Sweden. Right now, Carl Lindbom, he is in the SHL, the same series that William Karlsson was in, by the way. And this is right now his third season playing in the SHL. Now, it is unclear if the Vegas Golden Knights are going to call him up. It is unfamiliar if he is going to make the jump and transition over to North America, just like Karlsson did, just like Leonard did, and just like Beckman is doing now. But what we do know is that Carl Lindbom this season has a goals against average of 2.12 and a save percentage of 91.1. And here's a follow-up for you. He has a win-loss record this season of 17 wins and 11 losses. So for a 21-year-old goaltender in Sweden, he is not doing that bad in the international part of it. And since we have about a few minutes left here on the show, there are some former players that left the Golden Knights organization, but since they were Swedes, I do want to mention them, consider them the honorable mention category on this show. So you had 2023 first-round pick David Edstrom. Now, David Edstrom, when I did my prospect watch back in September, and I broke down the top 10 prospects for the Vegas Golden Knights, David Edstrom was your number 2 prospect entering the year for your Vegas Golden Knights. And unfortunately, very recently, only a couple of days ago, David Edstrom is traded from the Vegas Golden Knights. He was the main prospect sent over in the Tomas Hertl trade to San Jose. So David Edstrom, even though he was a first-round pick by Vegas, he will never step on the ice for the Golden Knights, as he will be going to San Jose. He will be their prospect turned player in a few years, but he has to be mentioned. He was a first-round pick. Oscar Lindberg was drafted during the 2017 NHL expansion draft from the New York Rangers by your Vegas Golden Knights. And then during the 2019 NHL trade deadline, the Vegas Golden Knights would flip Oscar Lindberg as a package deal to the Ottawa Senators to get the captain that we have now in Mark Stone. Mattias Janmark, the Edmonton Oiler currently, the Vegas Golden Knights traded for him during the 2021 NHL trade deadline. As the Chicago Blackhawks and Vegas Golden Knights, I feel like this has been 5 or 6 times I've said this on this channel. The Blackhawks and the Golden Knights made a trade. Janmark goes to the Golden Knights. Blackhawks get a goaltender and a few draft picks back. And for Mattias Janmark, he was a bottom 6 forward. He was a little bit of a contributor for Vegas. He only spent 2.5 years on the Golden Knights roster. And like I said, now he is in Edmonton on a bottom 6 role there. Oscar Dansk, who was a goaltender for Vegas, he was with them for 2.5 years. Now he's been with Calgary. He's been with Columbus. He's been about a bunch of teams now. He is in the AHL currently. And then Lucas Elneves, who was a prospect. He was actually part of the inaugural draft class of the Vegas Golden Knights in 2017. He eventually would get released by the Vegas Golden Knights, and then he would move on. He is now doing international stuff. So that is the Swedish connection, the connection between Sweden and the Vegas Golden Knights here on Vegas Hockey Hub. And until next time, I'm your host, Ian Rachiele. Continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights. go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.